What's going on, everybody? Mortem here, this time bringing you 5 games that I 100% but did not review for one reason or another, and in some cases that's because I frankly did it before I was really doing reviews for the channel. In other cases I just wanted to play the game for myself and not really have to worry about turning it into some form of work, and in still others, a review for the game just didn't make sense for one reason or another, or in some cases a combination of those reasons. Be that as it may, for as many games as I complete, there are plenty that I have played and not talked about on the channel for one reason or another, so videos like this give me the opportunity to do so. And now, diving into it from there, I'm going to kick this list off, starting with Divinity Dragon Commander, a very bizarre title, part of the Divinity series of course, that I would say was pretty experimental in a lot of ways, originally releasing back in 2013, I believe. It's a game that mixes strategic political decisions with real-time strategy battles where we take on the role of a Dragon Knight in the Divinity universe, though this particular game takes place way before any of the current timeline of the Divinity games. Over 11,000 years before Divinity Original Sin 2, in fact. Now, the reason I never reviewed this title, and likely never will to be honest, is that my reason for exploring it and playing it in the first place is because I went through this game during the time that my channel was focused pretty much entirely on Divinity lore, and with this being one of the main entries in that series, I wanted to know about it and kind of how things looked. So it kind of predated before I was even doing reviews, really. And beyond even just that point, it's just a very odd game in comparison to the entirety of the Divinity series. It's good, just a very different game in a lot of ways. Though I will say one of the more interesting aspects of this game was getting all the achievements on it, because there are some tricky aspects to that, specifically with the multiplayer. As you might imagine, multiplayer for this game is very dead. But you're not actually out of luck, because bizarrely the game will let you open multiple instances of it on your own computer, and the game features LAN support for your multiplayer, which means it is possible, albeit difficult, to set up a multiplayer match against yourself, which is how I personally got those achievements. In one instance, you have to have like 4 instances of the game open to get the 2v2 achievement, which was a nightmare, but it did work, so that goes down as one of the stranger things I've done for achievements, I would say, and certainly makes for an interesting anecdote in a video like this. Next up on the list, however, we have Thief, which is an interesting title, specifically the one from 2014, I mean, and there's a variety of reasons I didn't review this game, initially because it actually took me a long time to 100% this one. In fact, right before I started making content full-time, going all in on my reviews after the launch of Wrath of the Righteous, I put out a video talking about how I didn't get 100% on this one because of a few frustrating achievements that I didn't really have the time to deal with. And I'd made that, and I believe it was like July, and then I went full-time in September later that year. And a little bit after that, I was thinking about the game because I had just recently made that video, and it occurred to me that now that I had the time to do nothing but play video games, I could probably make that one happen, which I was then able to go back and grab the last few achievements I didn't have. But in spite of finishing this game to 100%, I then never actually got around to reviewing it, and the reason there is pretty simple. And this is gonna break a few people's hearts, but I am not that familiar with the original 3 Thief games, and it's a series I know means a lot to a lot of people, and without going back and doing those other games first, I don't think I could give a realistic picture of this game in comparison to the others, even though I enjoyed this one a good bit, which I know isn't exactly a popular online opinion. Either way though, an interesting experience to be sure. Now for number 3 on the list, we have a much more recent title that I did make one video for, though it was not a review. This is Lysfanga, a small indie title releasing just a few weeks ago, and it blends some, I would say, almost ARPG elements with a different sort of combat system that relies on strategy and tactics in a sort of puzzle way, if anything. You divide up remnants and fight enemies, make clones of yourself, and you have so many attempts to wipe all the enemies out. I made a checkout video for the title because I thought it was interesting, and then the reason I never reviewed it properly, and don't plan on doing so, is that because it is such a small, simple title that realistically my checkout video covered basically everything there was to know. A review for this game just wouldn't add much to the conversation, and would be an extremely short video that would mostly cover things I already mentioned. And because of that, it just didn't really feel necessary, though I did wind up 100%ing this one over the course of a couple of weeks because I would play it for like an hour or two a day, usually while I was waiting for videos to encode, things like that. as I thought the general premise was pretty interesting and I wanted to play a little bit more of it. Though it is a pretty small game, so that wound up not being that bad. Another recent-ish game on this list, though, is actually Cult of the Lamb, which recently got a big update back in January that I played through. And this is one of those games that is very fun, but it's very different from the stuff I usually cover, and I think I made a video on this. But mostly, this is a game I just wanted to play for myself. In a similar situation to Lysfanga, I would occasionally play it while I was waiting for videos to encode properly, or sometimes I would play it when I was laying down in bed for a while. It's actually a game that I played a lot on the Steam Deck in particular, and mostly I never reviewed this one because I simply wanted to just play it for myself without it being work in some way. But I enjoyed the title a lot. The sort of cutesy animals combined with all the occult cult stuff really made me laugh. In a lot of ways, I would say this game reminded me of those old Happy Tree Friends cartoons that as a teenager I thought were hilarious, but as an adult these days I realized were very stupid. Either way, it was a fun little game to relax and unwind to. And because of that, I just didn't want to make a job out of it, frankly. And then last on the list, it's technically a few different titles, but I'm kind of lumping them all together, which are the narrative games for Vampire the Masquerade and one for Werewolf the Apocalypse. That one being Heart of the Forest, and the Vampire the Masquerade ones being Shadows of New York and Coteries of New York. These are effectively interactive novels. Taking place, of course, in the world of darkness. They put you in the role of vampires, or a soon-to-be werewolf in the werewolf case. And they do a great job of exploring that setting in a fun way that, simply because we haven't got any RPGs in it, I really don't have much choice but to play. But that said, both Coteries of New York and Shadows of New York were very good. I think Heart of the Forest doesn't quite live up to those two, but I really enjoyed the story and the premise. Now, the reason I haven't reviewed these is obvious. They are small, effectively visual novels that really there's just not a lot to say about. I did really enjoy them though, which is why I went through all of them, and specifically, I think if you don't mind some reading, they are a great way to introduce yourself to the world of darkness as a whole in a pretty interactive way that doesn't see you just reading lore entries on Wikipedia or something. Though that is pretty much going to do it for a few video games I have 100% but not completed, which is a subject I hadn't talked about in a little while and I thought might make for some fun discussion before March gets pretty crazy with game releases. That said, let me know how you feel about these titles down in the comments section below. I'm curious to see what everybody thinks of them. At the same time though, I would love to hear about any games you've played extensively, though I imagine most people don't go making reviews out of them just for fun. So games you've 100% just because you loved them will certainly do. All of that to say simply like, comment, subscribe, all that YouTube jazz. But regardless of any of that, truly, just thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. May you wander in wisdom and have an amazing day.